Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we take your sources and distill them into essential knowledge. Today, we're embarking on, well, a truly epic journey, a 1,300-year story.
That's right. We're looking at Ismaili history, drawing heavily from a source called History of the Ismailis. And it really gives this sweeping overview, from pre-Islamic conditions right up to the modern Aga Khans.
It's a fascinating narrative, shaped by intense conflict, but also profound intellectual and social development. So our mission for you today, the curious learner, is to cut through this vast timeline. We want to pull out those key figures, the really surprising turns, and the enduring legacy of a community that's shown incredible adaptation.
Absolutely. It's navigated immense change.
Get ready for some aha moments, because we're about to unpack a story spanning continents and transformations.
The foundations from pre-Islamic Arabia to the Prophet Muhammad.
Okay, let's start right at the beginning. Pre-Islamic Arabia, what was the general atmosphere like? What kind of world are we talking about?
Well, the source describes it as a demoralized state. Think widespread paganism, anarchy, even savagery. Practices like burying infant girls alive were apparently common. Inheriting widows, widespread slavery. It sounds pretty grim.
A really challenging environment for any new message to take root. And Mecca itself was already significant, wasn't it? Centered around the Ka'batullah, the house of God.
Exactly. And there were established roles connected to it. Things like Sakaya and Rafata, that's providing water and food to pilgrims, and Hijaba, the guardianship of the Kaaba itself. These were held by different clans.
And Hashim, Prophet Muhammad's ancestor, held Sakaya and Rafata.
That's right. So there was already this structure, this lineage connected to the Kaaba that Muhammad was born into.
Okay, so Muhammad is born into this world orphaned early on. What about his early life, his character? Did anything set him apart even then?
Even before his prophethood, yeah. He was known for righteousness, for integrity. There's an interesting story the source mentions about the Harb al-Fijar, a sort of war of transgression. He was 20. But he apparently only participated by handing arrows to his uncles. A reluctance towards violence, maybe.
Interesting detail. And the Black Stone.
Right, the placing of the Black Stone in the Kaaba. He played a key role in finding a solution that gave every clan a share of the honor, preventing conflict, shows leadership qualities quite early.
Definitely. And later he worked for Khadija, who then became his wife. So how did things unfold when he started preaching Islam?
Well, for the first 3 years, it was very low-key, underground, really. But when he began preaching publicly, calling for allegiance, and this is key, declaring Ali ibn Abu Talib as his collateral and vice-mizirant, that's when the persecution really ramped up.
And the source gives some pretty harrowing examples of that persecution.
Oh, yes. Truly brutal stuff. Amar's father reportedly torn apart between 2 camels. Lubaina, described as Umar's handmaid, beaten until her tormentor just got tired. Awful.
Wow. So this led to the migration to Abyssinia.
It did, for some, though there was a false rumor that the Meccans had converted, which tragically lured many back, only to face even worse conditions.
So faced with this level of hostility in Mecca, what did Muhammad do? Did he change strategy?
He tried preaching elsewhere. Taif, notably, where he was wounded by stones, didn't go well. He eventually returned to Mecca, but under the protection of Mutim bin Adi. But crucially, around this time, he started meeting people from Yathrib, the city that would become Medina.
Ah, the Pledge of Aqaba.
Exactly. It started small, 6 men, then 12, then 72. They pledged allegiance to him. This was the foundation for the next big step.
Which was the Hijra, the flight to Medina, a truly defining moment.
Absolutely defining. The Meccans were plotting to kill him.
And Ali stepped in.
Yes, Ali fearlessly slept in Muhammad's bed as a decoy, allowing Muhammad to escape. That flight, the Hijra, marks the start of the Islamic calendar, first Muharram.
So he arrives in Medina, Yathrib as it was, a city with different tribes, Jewish communities. How did he establish order?
A really vital first step. He drew up the Covenant of Medina. It basically laid out a framework for coexistence between the Muslims, the Jewish tribes, the Aws, the Khazraj, a kind of constitution, you could say.
Remarkable diplomacy and state building right from the start.
Early Islamic conflicts and the succession debates.
Okay, so Medina is established, there's a covenant, but the conflict with Mecca, that wasn't resolved peacefully, was it?
No, not at all. Things escalated, leading to the early battles that really forged the community.
Like the Battle of Badr.
Right. Year 2 of the Hijra, hugely significant. You've got about 313 Muslims against maybe 1,000 Meccans, vastly outnumbered. The source highlights Muhammad's intense prayer for victory and the sheer bravery of fighters like Ali, Ubaidah, Hamza.
But they weren't all victories. The following year, that was a setback, right?
Major setback, yes. And the source attributes it directly to some Muslim archers disobeying orders. They left their posts, creating a gap, and the Meccans exploited it. The Prophet himself was wounded, in danger.
A harsh lesson. And you mentioned Ali's bravery again. Was there another instance?
At Hunain, later on, apparently an infidel was chasing fleeing Muslims, and Ali's decisive action turned the tide. He seems to feature prominently in these early conflicts.
And just before Muhammad's death, there was the Tabuk expedition. Ali didn't go.
Correct. Muhammad appointed Ali as his caliph, his representative, to stay behind in Medina. Now, some critical sources suggest this was quite deliberate. The thinking being, Muhammad wanted Ali and his core supporters in Medina, perhaps to smooth the path for Ali's succession without immediate opposition.
Interesting political dimension there. Okay, so Muhammad eventually passes away in 632 AD after a period of illness. Let's talk about his teachings, particularly on knowledge, ilm.
This is really central. Muhammad stressed the inestimable value of knowledge, ilm. And it wasn't just about facts. He defined it as fairness, listening, keeping things in mind, acting on knowledge, and importantly, spreading it.
So an active, engaged kind of knowledge.
Very much so. Think of those famous sayings, go in search of knowledge even into China, or excessive knowledge is better than excessive praying. It's about understanding and application.
An armor against enemies guides us to happiness. It sounds incredibly practical.
Exactly. It highlights this deep ethical and practical dimension to learning right from the start.
Okay, so after his death, the succession issue becomes immediate, contentious. What happened to Sequefa Banu Sa'd?
Right, this meeting takes place. Around 300 Medinans gather to choose a leader. But significantly, the source notes, not a single person from Banu Hashim, Muhammad's own clan, was there initially.
And Abu Bakr and Umar arrive.
They rushed there, yes. An argument was already underway. Some were arguing for Ali, citing Muhammad's designation. But in the end, Abu Bakr was elected the first caliph.
Which brings us squarely to Ali, a huge figure for Ismailis, born inside the Kaaba you mentioned.
Yes, a unique distinction. Born, according to tradition, on Friday, 13th Rajab, 600 AD. And the source emphasizes that Muhammad had declared Ali his successor through Nas wa Tayin. That's a key term meaning divine designation, specific appointment.
But the election went a different way.
It did. And Ali's own time as caliph, when it eventually came, was unfortunately dominated by internal conflict.
Right, the battles against Muawiyah and Aisha.
Exactly. Muawiyah accused Ali over the death of the third caliph, Uthman. That led to the Battle of Siffin. Aisha made a similar claim, leading to the Battle of the Camel. The source notes Ali really tried to avoid Muslim bloodshed in both.
Siffin ended with that controversial arbitration.
Yes, and it didn't go Ali's way. Muawiyah's representative, Amr bin Alaz, was apparently very shrewd, manipulated the process. Ali was effectively deposed. Muawiyah installed. Ali also had to deal with the Kharijis, a group that broke away from him at the Battle of Naharawan. A very turbulent time.
But beyond the battles, Ali is revered for his intellect, his spiritual depth. What does the source say about that?
Oh, hugely important. Sufis trace their spiritual lineages, their esoteric knowledge, back to Ali, believing he possessed ilm al-laduni knowledge directly from God. He taught Islam as a religion of reason, encouraged critical thinking, known for his precise language, his wisdom.
Even making kind of scientific judgments, like that calculation about the Earth and Sun.
It's quite startling, isn't it? He calculated the time it would take a horse running nonstop to reach the sun 500 years, which apparently translates to about 95 million miles, a figure that popped up again in Renaissance Europe. Remarkable.
And known for generosity, too, that story about the slave girl.
Yes, freeing her after she accidentally spilled hot soup on him shows a different side, compassion alongside the intellect and leadership.
Let's touch on his sons, Hassan and Hussein, both absolutely central to the Ismaili narrative.
Hassan was initially acclaimed as the fifth caliph after Ali, but Muawiyah's political games continued. Bribery, maneuvering. Hassan eventually abdicated. He later died from poison, and the source strongly suggests Muawiyah was behind it.
A tragic end. And then Hussein and the events of Karbala, a deeply powerful story.
Very powerful. Hussein was invited to Kufa by its people, but he journeyed despite warnings. He was intercepted at Karbala. His group, just 72 men, women, and children, had their water cut off by the Umayyad forces. He fought bravely against overwhelming odds, ultimately leading to his martyrdom and the killing of most of his family members present.
The impact of Karbala must have been immense.
Huge shockwaves, grief, anger against the Umayyad rulers. It really deepened the divisions within the Muslim world and solidified the Shia identity around this tragic event.
The era of concealment, Dari Sattu, and the rise of intellectual movements.
Okay, so after Karbala, a major shift occurs for the Imams. They enter this period known as Dari Sattra, the period of concealment. What did that actually mean? Why was it necessary?
Right, satri means hide or shield. It refers to times when, due to intense persecution from enemies, the Ismaili Imam was hidden from the view of the majority of his followers. But the core belief is crucial. The Imam is always present, always alive, leading the community, whether he's visible or concealed.
So not an absence of leadership, but a hidden leadership.
Exactly. And when the Imam was in Satra, his hujjat, his proof, or chief representative, would be the manifest figure guiding the community.
How did they manage this concealment logistically?
They set up secret headquarters. Salamiyah in Syria became a really important one. There are even reports of tunnels stretching miles into the desert for moving people and treasury discreetly. The imams themselves often lived disguised, perhaps as merchants, to avoid detection. Incredible resilience.
During this time, who were some of the key figures keeping the flame alive, so to speak?
Well, Zayn al-Abidin, Hussein's son, focused on knowledge, piety. He famously declined the Caliphate of Damascus when offered, impressing people with his wisdom.
And his son, Muhammad al-Bakir, he seems to have made some very practical contributions too.
Absolutely. He's known as the opener of sciences. He was apparently instrumental in getting the first standardized Islamic coins minted in Damascus around 695 AD, proper dinars and dirhams with Islamic inscriptions.
That's fascinating, establishing currency.
And he founded the first Shia school, a center for learning.
Then his son, Jafar Sadiq, also credited with remarkable insights.
Yes, a major intellectual figure, scholar, poet, philosopher. The source credits him with some amazing things, like anticipating the existence of outer planets. Pluto, Venus, Uranus are mentioned, and ideas about light reflection.
He even called for an instrument to see things 50 times nearer, like an early telescope concept.
It really points to this vein of scientific curiosity running alongside the spiritual leadership. Quite extraordinary for the time.
And this period also saw the Ikhwan as-Safa, the Brothers of Purity. What was their role?
They were essentially a hidden intellectual network formed by the Imam and his missionaries. Their goal was partly to counter certain rationalist trends, like Mu'tazilism, which they felt were creating contradictions by judging everything purely by human reason.
So they were defending a particular understanding of faith and reason?
Yes, and they produced this massive encyclopedia of 52 epistles covering philosophy, science, theology. A huge effort to preserve and advance knowledge during a difficult time.
It shows a vibrant intellectual life continuing even under persecution and concealment.
The golden age of the Fatimid Caliphate in North Africa and Egypt.
Okay, let's leap forward now. From concealment to a much more overt phase, the establishment of the Fatimid Caliphate. How did that transition happen?
Well, the Ismaili mission, the Dawah, had been quietly working in North Africa, the Maghreb, for a long time, since Jafar Sadiq's era. Then, a key figure, Abu Abdullah al-Shia Day, was sent there around 892 AD. He had huge success converting Berber tribes, built a real power base.
So he laid the groundwork for the Imam to emerge.
Precisely. He paved the way for al-Mahdi, the Imam at the time. Al-Mahdi journeyed from Salamiyah, faced some dangers, but eventually, with al-Shia's support, he took control of the region. He formally founded the Fatimid Caliphate at Raqqada on March 26, 909 AD.
A huge moment. From concealment to ruling a state.
A massive shift. They even struck coins saying things like, proofs of God arrived, enemies of God dispersed. Very symbolic. Later moved the capital to a new city, Al-Madiyah, built a big shipyard there too.
But this period had its challenges, the Cormatians you mentioned.
Yes, the Cormatians are a complex group, sometimes allied, sometimes rivals, but they committed this horrific act in 929 AD. Attacked Mecca during pilgrimage, killed people, damaged the Kaaba, stole the Black Stone.
And they recited the Fatimid sermon while doing it.
Yes, seemingly to deliberately defame the Fatimids. Al-Mahdi was furious, severely reprimanded them as a huge violation. The Black Stone wasn't returned for decades.
Okay, moving forward. Al-Mu'izz, he's the one who conquered Egypt, right? Shifting the center of power.
That's right. Al-Mu'izz was a real visionary. He saw the potential of Egypt. He sent his general, Jawar, with a massive army, 200,000 men, the source says a huge cost.
And Jawar founded Cairo.
He founded Al-Qahira the Victorious, which became Cairo in 969 AD. This brought the Fatimids right into the heartland of the Islamic world.
What was Fatimid Egypt like? It sounds like a real high point.
It really seems to have been a golden age. Prosperity, flourishing trade, intellectual vitality. Almirs promoted religious tolerance, justice, peace. They combined religious authority as imams with secular power as caliphs, created a very powerful, respected state.
And that huge dockyard, building hundreds of ships.
Yeah, the largest fleet Egypt had ever seen. Shows their ambition, their capability, and that anecdote about the world map woven into a prayer rug, it speaks volumes about their global outlook and appreciation for knowledge.
Al-Aziz followed him. Did he continue this flourishing?
He did. He's particularly known for developing the Al-Azhar Mosque into, essentially, the leading university in the Islamic world. Students came from everywhere. His reign was generally peaceful, prosperous. He even made a truce with the Byzantines, quite a diplomatic coup, getting the Fatimid Khutbah recited in Constantinople.
But his tolerance towards non-Muslims, the Al-Dima, caused some friction.
It seems so. He appointed Christians and Jews to high positions, which was part of the tolerance policy. But their increased visibility and influence apparently caused some resentment among parts of the Muslim population.
Setting the stage, perhaps, for his successor, Al-Hakim, who is quite a character.
Definitely one of the most controversial and frankly strange figures in the history. He became caliph when he was only 11. His reign saw hardship, famine, economic problems, and he dealt with things very sternly. Drastic hands, the source calls it.
Banning certain foods, killing dogs.
Yes, very specific, sometimes odd decrees. Prohibiting nudity in baths, ordering all dogs killed for sanitation. Comes across as eccentric, maybe autocratic.
And his relationship with the non-Muslim communities swung wildly.
It seems that way. Initially privileges, then restrictions, distinctive dress. No public parades, apparently due to their celebrations becoming too prominent. This escalated into riots, and even the destruction of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem in 109 AD. A terrible event.
But then tolerance was restored later.
Apparently so. It's a very contradictory picture.
What's fascinating, though, is despite all this, he was a patron of knowledge.
Yes, that's the paradox.
Oh.
He founded the Dar al-Hikmah, the House of Knowledge, a major academy. He was personally into astronomy, built an observatory. He invited the great physicist Ibn al-Haytham, the founder of optics, to Egypt to work on a project to dam the Nile.
So a very complex figure. Stern, maybe erratic, but also intellectually curious.
Absolutely. And his reign is also when the Druze community emerged.
Believing he didn't die but went into concealment.
Yes, that's the core Druze belief. They await his return. But it's important, the source stresses, that the official Ismaili leadership at the time rejected these ideas about al-Hakim. They denied he ever supported that kind of extremist interpretation.
The Nizari state of Elamut and the assassin's misnomer.
Okay, so the Fatimid Caliphate in Cairo faces its own internal issues eventually. And this leads to a really major split within Ismailism itself, the emergence of the Nizari branch.
That's right. It happens after al-Mustansir. His reign was incredibly long, over 60 years. He brought some stability, especially with his Armenian vizier, Badr al-Jamali.
But stability couldn't prevent a succession crisis, often the way.
Exactly. Al-Mustansir had designated his older son al-Nizar as his successor. Nas had been performed, but the powerful vizier, Al-Afdal Badr al-Jamali's son, feared Nizar would remove him. So, when Mustansir died, Al-Afdal conspired to quickly install Nizar's younger, more pliable brother, al-Mustali, as caliph.
And Nizar.
He resisted, was captured, imprisoned, and died, likely killed.
And this act of usurpation, essentially, is what sparked the Nizari split.
Yes. Nizar's followers refused to accept Mustali. They believed the imamate rightly belonged to Nizar and his line. They managed to spirit away Nizar's son or grandson. The sources differ slightly to safety. And crucially, they rallied around a figure already active in Persia.
Hassan bin Sabah, founder of the Alamut state.
Indeed, Hassan bin Sabah had already established a base at the fortress of Alamut in the mountains of Daylem, northern Iran, around 1088 AD. It was a brilliant strategic choice, very defensible.
And the ruling power, the Seljuk Turks, they weren't happy about this independent Ismaili stronghold.
Not happy at all. Sultan Malik Shah and his famous vizier Nizam al-Mulk saw them as a major threat. They launched repeated military campaigns to try and wipe them out. besieged Alamut, destroyed crops. But Hassan was a master strategist. He inspired resistance, claimed messages from the hidden imam. He also focused on self-sufficiency irrigation, gardens, making Alamut resilient.
And he was incredibly strict internally, even executing his own sons.
Yes, the source mentions this. One for drinking wine, another for suspected involvement in the murder of a day missionary. It shows absolute dedication to the cause, however harsh it seems.
Now, we have to address this term, assassins. It's so strongly linked with Alamut, but the source says it's a misnomer.
A complete misnomer, an abusive term, as the source puts it. It gained traction mainly through the Crusaders and European chroniclers who didn't really understand the Ismailis or Islam generally. They heard stories, maybe exaggerated, maybe misunderstood. The Ismailis were fighting for survival against powerful enemies, not engaging in random terror.
So the idea of them being drug fanatics is just legend.
Likely legend, yes. The term hashisha, hashish users itself, seems to have been a slur, possibly used by enemies, maybe originating from some unrelated wandering Sufi groups. It wasn't how the Nizaris described themselves or operated.
Okay, that's crucial context. And the source also clarifies the Ismaili-Sufi relationship.
It says, intriguingly, every Ismaili is a Sufi, but not every Sufi is an Ismaili, meaning Ismailism incorporates that esoteric, mystical dimension, tariqa, but it's also a defined social and political system, which isn't always true of Sufism. Ismaili Sufism remained distinct.
After Hassan bin Sabah, the leadership at Alamut continued the struggle.
Yes, his successor, Kia Buzrug Umid, fought off more Seljuk attacks, even expanded their territory slightly. They even minted their own coins. And it's important to remember the source stresses figures like Hassan and Kia Buzrug were considered hujjats. They were the representatives, the proofs of the imams who were still considered technically in concealment during this early Alamut phase.
Until Hassan II, the first imam born in Iran. And he declared the Qiyamah. What was that about?
Right, Hassan al-Zikrihi salam. He publicly declared himself the imam and announced the Qiyamah. This has been misunderstood as abolishing Islamic law, the Sharia. But the Ismaili understanding, as presented, is that it was about unveiling the inner spiritual meaning, batem, of the commandments, moving beyond just the literal external form, sahir, a spiritual resurrection, not an end to religion.
Shift in emphasis. Tragically, he was assassinated.
Stabbed by his brother-in-law, yes. A recurring theme of internal conflict, too.
His son, Allah Muhammad, had a long reign. And during this time, a major figure emerges in Syria, Rashiduddin Sinan.
Sinan, often called the Old Man of the Mountain in Crusader legends, though he wasn't the Imam himself. He was sent by Imam Hassan II. He was a brilliant organizer in Syria, consolidated Ismaili castles, made Masyaf his HQ, trained elite Fidios loyal devotees skilled in languages, espionage, used carrier pigeons for communication, very sophisticated.
And he famously faced off against Saladin.
Yes, Saladin initially tried to crush the Syrian Ismailis, but after Sinan sent some rather pointed messages, possibly involving daggers left on Saladin's pillow, Saladin apparently backed off, realizing how formidable they were.
Wow. But Alamut itself eventually fell to the Mongols.
Yes, the Mongol tide was unstoppable. Hulagu Khan besieged Alamut during the rule of the last lord Ruknuddin Kursha. Despite resistance, the fortress fell in 1256. Ruknuddin surrendered, hoping for mercy, but was eventually killed by the Mongols. That ended the 170-year Nizari state based at Alamut.
A devastating blow. But the lineage continued.
Critically, yes. Ruknuddin had managed to secretly send his young son, Shamsuddin Muhammad, away to safety in Azerbaijan before the final fall. The Emet continued, albeit back into deep concealment.
Most Alamut and the era of the Aga Khans.
So Alamut falls, the Imam is in hiding again. How did the Nizari Ismaili survive this period? It must have been incredibly dangerous.
Extremely dangerous. They had to practice strict taqiyya, concealing their true beliefs for centuries. Often they blended in, appearing as Sufis, traders, just ordinary craftsmen. The source even says Iran became a breeding ground of fictions for bigoted historians because genuine Ismaili history was so hidden, hard to track.
And this concealment led to confusion, like mistaking the Imam Shamsuddin Muhammad for the famous Sufi Shamsi Tabriz.
Exactly. The Imam Shamsuddin Muhammad lived secretly in Tabriz for a while. Later generations easily confused him with the Sufi mystic, who was Rumi's famous companion. It shows how deeply intertwined Ismaili and Sufi circles could be, partly for survival. Ismailis might even call themselves al-Sufat, the pure, aligning with Sufi terminology.
But the mission, the dawah, didn't die out. It eventually recentered in Anjudan, Iran.
Yes. After some time, Anjudan, a village in central Iran, became the new, albeit discreet, center, the cradle-land of the Ismaili mission in the post-Alamut era, the source calls it. They rebuilt a systematic dawah structure, imam at the top, then the hujjat, then teachers, Madim, down to different grades of local representatives, Madim, very organized, even in secrecy.
And the mission expanded again, notably into India. Adapting the message seems key here.
Absolutely. Figures like Pir Sadruddin were crucial, designated as the Hujjat for Sindh and Hind, India. He was brilliant at finding common ground, using analogies between Islamic and Hindu concepts, focusing on the inner meaning over rituals. He introduced the Das Avatara idea, linking Ali to Hindu avatars.
And he's credited with the term Koja.
Yes, from Koja, meaning get absorbed or master, possibly drawing on Sufi meditative practices. He created a new identity, rooted in local culture but Ismaili in faith. Very effective.
But this success didn't mean an end to persecution, especially later with the Safavids in Iran.
No, the Safavids enforced Quwwar-Shizim very strictly. This forced many Ismailis back into deeper taqiyya, outwardly conforming as Twelvers. You get figures like Shah Tahir Hussein Dakhani, an Ismaili scholar who had to flee Iran for India. He became a top advisor in an Indian kingdom, all while secretly maintaining his Ismaili faith and guiding the community.
This brings us towards the modern era and the beginning of the Aga Khan title. The first Aga Khan, Hassan Ali Shah, he had troubles in Iran too.
He did. Became imam very young, just 13. Served as a governor for the Qajar rulers in Kirman. But politics got messy, rebellions, accusations. The Qajars ended up viewing him as a rebel. He was forced to flee Iran around 1840.
And ended up seeking refuge with the British, eventually landing in India.
Yes, arriving in Karachi in 1845. This marked a huge shift. The imam was now based in British India, interacting directly and openly with large communities of followers there.
And faced challenges there too, legal cases.
Definitely. There were internal disputes, like with a group called the Barb High, and the famous Koja case in the Bombay High Court in 1866. The court case was vital. It legally affirmed his position as the spiritual head of the Koja Ismaili community. He also started lecturing directly to his followers, setting a pattern for modern leadership.
His son, the second Aga Khan, Aka Ali Shah, continued this relationship with the British.
Yes, he was formally granted the title His Highness, known for his love of sport apparently, but also continued his father's work organizing the community. His followers called him Aka Ali Shah Datar, the bestower, shows affection and respect.
And then Aga Khan III, Sultan Muhammad Shah, a towering figure on the world stage.
Truly. Born in Karachi, 1877, became imam at just 8. Educated in Europe, he became a major international statesman, president of the All India Muslim League, led India's delegation to the League of Nations, a prominent voice for Muslims globally.
And deeply committed to education.
Passionately. He was key in transforming Aligarh College into a major Muslim university, fulfilling Sir Syed Ahmed Khan's vision. He saw education as the panacea, the key to modernization and progress for Muslims.
What about his commitment to human rights? The source highlights this strongly.
He highly abhorred injustice, it says, and acted on it, resigning from an exclusive golf club when they objected to a black boxer playing, taking Senegalese students to lunch when they were refused service elsewhere. Practical examples of fighting prejudice.
His leadership also focused on community development, the Jubilees.
Yes, the Golden, Diamond, Platinum Jubilees. These celebrations involved weighing him in gold or diamonds. But the point wasn't personal wealth. The funds raised were plowed back into the community for schools, hospitals, economic programs, a unique form of philanthropy.
His death in 1957 led to his grandson, Karim, becoming imam, and his will was quite specific about the choice.
Very specific and quite groundbreaking. He bypassed his own son and chose his grandson, Karim. His reasoning, stated in the will, was fascinating. He cited the fundamentally altered conditions in the world, mentioning atomic science, the pace of change. He felt the community needed a young man brought up in the midst of the new age with a new outlook, forward-looking.
And the current imam, Aga Khan IV, has built extensively on that foundation.
Very much so. Harvard educated, he's massively expanded his grandfather's work in socioeconomic development, established the Aga Khan Foundation in '67, the Industrial Promotion Services, IPS, for economic projects earlier in '63, focusing on improving quality of life.
And initiatives like the Aga Khan Award for Architecture.
Yes, founded in '77, and the Program for Islamic Architecture at Harvard, MIT in '79. These promote excellence in architecture and design within Muslim societies. Blending heritage with modernity, it's a broad vision.
His role in interfaith dialogue is also notable, giving that address at Brown University.
It highlights his role as a bridge builder. The source talks about his ecumenical spirit, linking Islam, Christianity, and Judaism. His leadership, building on centuries of history, has allowed the Ismailis to navigate modernity, maintain their faith, and, as the source notes, become remarkably prosperous through their own efforts, guided by their living imams. Outro.
What an incredible sweep of history, 1,300 years. From pre-Islamic Arabia through concealment, empires, persecution, to this vibrant global community today. It really is a story of resilience.
It truly is. Resilience, adaptation. We've seen how the leadership, the imams, consistently emphasized knowledge, reason, social justice, community upliftment, whether they were visible rulers or hidden guides.
That seems to be the thread allowing the community to handle enormous change, huge pressures, yet still thrive.
And what stands out is how this lineage, so ancient, manages to be so forward-looking, constantly adapting, engaging with the modern world without losing that core identity and spiritual foundation.
That blend of tradition and modernity.
Exactly. The emphasis on education, welfare, a pragmatic application of faith in diverse contexts, it's clearly been a successful model for them.
So thinking about all this, what's the takeaway for you, the listener?
Well, this history really makes you think about how any community, any tradition, maintains its identity while adapting to profound change. It's a universal challenge. And perhaps it leaves us with a question. In our own information-saturated, rapidly changing world, how do we find and apply genuine knowledge that leads to collective well-being, not just individual gain? How do we navigate that balance between holding onto our heritage and embracing the future, as the Ismailis have managed to do for so long?